Hey, how are you doing, Tom?
I'm good.
That's
I'm
good.
good, Mike.
Yeah, hey, this is me and Tom on our weekly show of our main event.
hmm
We are the first, the last, the Nerdom.
hmm
We thank you so much for all of our recent subscribers and whatnot. And Tom and I are back. We took a couple weeks off
hmm
for
But
spring
you,
break.
but for you guys, it was only 1 week because we had a banked the episode. Our last one was they cloned Tyrone,
Yes.
which if you haven't watched it yet, you might want to watch the movie and watch our little coverage on it. It's actually a fun little movie
Yep.
that Netflix has. So if you still have your Netflix account, which there's a lot of cool stuff popping up on Netflix that I noticed that I want to watch, but we're not here to talk about that. How was your little break there?
It was really nice. I got some things done. Didn't travel, didn't do anything crazy like that, but it was nice, relaxing. I got caught up on some digital filing crap I got to do and all that, and it was just nice to kind of chill for a little bit and not have to worry about this or that. But I did miss it because I was kind of like, man, what am I going to watch? Fortunately, there's some good
Mhm.
offerings out there in general. But yeah, I echo your commentary, your comments on They Clone Tyrone. It's just a fun movie. You don't have to think about. You're gonna get into it. Now, whether you like it or not, after the end, you're probably gonna end up liking it. To be honest,
Yeah,
um,
it's one of those that are yeah, it's a sort of like a popcorn movie. It's not something you're supposed to think too heavily about. Just have a little bit of fun with.
absolutely, yeah. And I'm gonna turn on our thing here so we can. So obviously, a little teaser there of what we're gonna be covering here.
Yeah, it's
Um,
our we invited Cyclops on, so he'll be commenting on things.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, so we're gonna take a little travel trip through, and mentioning it like our namesake, our channel. We will be covering the first two episodes of this really cool new X-Men show that they've been teasing for a long time. I
hmm
know I've somewhat been looking forward to it for sure, with regard to a few other factors here that I'm sure we'll touch into or bump into as we go forward. But and then we'll
Yeah,
also
yeah.
yeah, and then tell us what do the carry us through.
Yeah, yeah. Well, with anything Disney, there's going to be a little bit of controversy. I mean, come on,
It's true.
it's always going to happen. But yeah, there's the controversy of it coming out so late. In fact, it's come out so late that it's been so delayed that a lot of the toys. I think Hasbro put out the toys. They had to put them out so they could make some money off of it, and they're already in the discount bin because the show wasn't out
No.
yet.
Oh, for real? Oh
Yep.
man. I yeah, well, I'm not surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. Like the and unfortunately, and we'll get into it, but just a real quick, like yeah, and we're also going to cover the last two episodes of the original animated
hmm
series, which we'll get into the histrionics of it between us both for that, and then but in more current things, what you're just talking about. Unfortunately,
hmm
this is the thing, and it doesn't matter if you love Disney, Star Wars, or Disney, Marvel, MCU. It doesn't matter if you hate them. It doesn't matter because there's this thing called reputation, and slowly over time, Disney, for better or for worse, is kind of. It seems like they've been rolling down a very steep hill
hmm
that is lined with sandpaper. Like
Yeah.
it's not doing them any favors over the time. Like, but I think this was I won't bury the lead here. I think this was a very good, pleasant surprise. And I would say, well, I'm sure we'll get into it here, but yeah. So we covered the first two. I think the first three are out. Um,
I
you
think
know,
just two are out right now.
are the first two out? Because
Least as
okay,
of last night. Yeah.
yeah, you know what it is? It's the most of the review embargo or date whatever broke, and then they
hmm
could talk. That's what it is. I've been flooded with
hmm
reviews that I've watched of other folks that I like
hmm
to what just to kind of see their take here, there, whatever.
hmm
And I'll touch on that in a little bit. But they've been able to see the first three episodes. That's what I'm confusing. Yeah,
hmm
but we just saw the first two, and
hmm
it's available on Disney Plus. So there's no I believe you were able to watch both the old animated show and these on all in one spot, right?
Yeah, yeah, they have the. Actually, this is serious talks. I gotta crack open my boomer juice
Do
here,
it.
but but yeah, they've got the first 5 seasons. Well, that's the complete series of the fifth one or of the original one, and they I watch we watched the first and the last of the series, but no, we watched the last 2 episodes of the series, and I gotta say I guess the master tapes are. What they are, because the sound quality and the picture quality on those are pretty atrocious, even on
Oh,
Disney.
for the old one.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and you know, I'm not gonna go into it, whatever, but I, you know, I watch these things in my own time, and you know, we privately we talk about that a little bit, but yeah, I kind of felt like I was wondering if I would be better off where I'm at and what I did per se, or versus like what you had, what you were working with, like what the comparison of
Yeah.
quality would be. Because I had
Yeah.
my they weren't the best,
Hmm.
and they're not very big. And you got to remember this is like 480, right?
Hmm.
Topping out. There is no such thing. I mean, I could be wrong, but there is no such thing as a 4K remastered version of the animated original one.
Right.
That doesn't exist in any universe.
Yeah.
Solidly say, never mind HD or 4K or any of that jazz.
Yeah, and I believe was it a Saturday morning cartoon, or
It
was it
was.
like a, yeah, okay, because the as we'll get further into it, if you quality overall in those original
Mhm.
series is poor, not the best of
It
quality.
it
So
it was probably on par for that era and time, I would
oh
say.
yeah, yeah,
You know, like
definitely.
and just kind of, you know, and but can it stand? Can it kind of stand up to? And I had a little private conversation with a fellow viewer that has also been a special guest on our show a few
Hmm.
days ago. Like we kind of talked about this and that,
Hmm.
you know. But like the level of quality that we get today is insane. Also, and I kind of called that out. I was like, it's kind of cool that for a few shekels you can just sign up and watch a whole library and vast libraries of things on the go, and you don't have to think about it. You know, it's like it's right there. So
Yeah,
you know,
my
it's still
yeah.
very easy in this. So there's a lot better things that are in this modern era. Um,
Yeah, yeah. My say what you will about Disney. I did. There are cheaper ways around things. I got the.
oh
I
yeah,
don't.
yes you did. Yeah.
Yeah. Back. I canceled back when I was having some job issues. I canceled all my streaming services, and the only one that actually said, "Hey, we like you so much, we'll give you a discount." The Hulu gave me a deal where, hey, if you come back, we'll give you 6 months for $3. And I was like, okay, okay, you got me there. I can, even on my financial situation, I can afford $3 a month. And
Right.
then they said, well, $2 more, you get Disney. I was like, okay. So for 6 months, I had both for $5, which,
That's a good deal.
that ain't bad. And then
No.
the 6 months came up past month, and it just went up to $10. So evidently, I'm still getting Disney for a couple of bucks or however much. So
For now.
yeah,
Yeah.
for Disney and Hulu, if you're an anime person, that they've got a huge library of
Oh, Hulu.
anime on Hulu.
Oh
Yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it was
So
like
I've heard anyway.
200 over 200 titles, and they even have they're going to have Sandland, which is I the creator of Dragon Ball Z, who passed away
Hmm.
just a couple of weeks ago. I forget his name. I'd mess up if I said his name, but yeah, his last manga and anime is Sandland, and it's out on Hulu as well. But yeah, it's yeah. So that's a pretty good value. But yeah, if you could find that, maybe take advantage of it. But yeah, and I know that. That money's going to the evil overlords of Disney, but hey, there's a lot of entertainment there.
Yeah, and while you were mentioning that, I was Akira Toriyama, Akira,
Toriyama. Yep.
yeah, yeah, and that was like March 8th, so like really
Yeah.
fresh.
Yeah, I
Of
know
course,
that. I know that hit a lot of people really hard.
oh yeah,
The people that grew up with Dragon Ball Z. I came up a little bit before that, so he didn't. It didn't hit me quite as hard, but yeah. I mean, yeah. There's his impact on everything was, yeah, is limitless of what he's touched and had an influence on.
yeah, and I might as well kind of pull him up here while we were chit chatting. But yeah, yeah, for me, I definitely got a good bit of exposure to anime, like, from Dragon Ball Z, like, but it wasn't, like, when it was, like, whatever,
Hmm.
it was actually through it was much later on in my 20s. So I'm not gonna claim that I stayed up on, late nights and watched Adult
Right.
Swim. When it originally hit the market, I didn't. But I did follow up because Adult Swim would replay that stuff a million times, and, I kinda rolled into it from a friend, and he mentioned it and started watching it, got hooked. Very episodic, you were, like, right there. They would usually do 2 and then you move on, but yeah, what an amazing creator,
Yep.
who was a bridge between
Yep.
Japan and America, and
Hmm.
so many people,
Yep. Yep.
our like, just generations, like, he covered a few quite sizable generations and introduced that, so,
Yeah, and
um
he has a huge impact in Latin America as well.
oh,
That's
no kidding.
he's got a Dragon Ball Z's like legendary down there. It's a huge, but yeah. So yeah, yeah, and he's had influence in video games. I mean, he designed all the characters in Dragon Quest, and Sandland's going to have a game out as well. Yeah, his designs are everywhere.
Yeah, and
So yeah.
literally all he wanted to like, all he I just wanna keep writing, manga.
Hmm.
He wanted to keep doing his art. That's what he was very,
Hmm.
satisfied, yeah. I
Yep.
do think that, unfortunately, like, just a small commentary because we are kinda crossing the bridge over here with, anime, and of course, if you're not in the know, anime is just the word kind of, it's just animation. That's all it is. Like, it's not like some special thing. But kind of carry that. Like, I think that Japanese manga creators perhaps have a little bit of a better deal, like, as they age out and they are retiring, than say, comic book creators or why am I big? Jesus Christ. I did not mean to do that. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I was not paying attention to the controls. Anyway, I was just saying, like, whereas, like, I've seen we covered quite a few GoFundMe's. So and so is cancer, or so and so has a life threatening illness, and they're having a hard time, and they don't have the resources, and they're like tapped out. And these are like famous people that brought us to storylines like this, that X-Men 97 were adapted from, at least
So
the
yeah,
original animated series anyway.
so the original one came out in I think 91 or 92,
92, yeah, I believe.
and ran through 96, and this is as if it continues on in
Right.
97. So this is the conceit, is that it's a continuation, a direct continuation, almost like a few months later after the final episode of the season. Now, let's talk a little bit about the just a little bit about the original series, because I'm not the expert on it. Because I when I was growing up, I
Mhm.
was yeah, I was a huge X-Men fan. So you would
Mm.
think I would be a huge fan of the cartoon, but actually I'm not. I was I was. I got into the first superhero I got into was Spider-Man, but X-Men was the first comic book that really felt like I connected strongly with. I got into it during the 80s, and that was prime time when Chris Claremont was writing this. And this is what a lot of the cartoon pulls from, is his era of the X-Men, pulls storylines and everything from. And I
Cool.
was very much enamored with the X-Men of that time. And in fact,
Cool.
during the 90s, when Chris Claremont left the comic book and the X-Men, I kind of my interest in the X-Men and superhero comics in general kind of waned at that point because it felt like the heart of it had left with Chris Claremont's leaving it, and so I got more into like the Vertigo comic books in DC and a lot of the independents like Dark Horse and all of that stuff. And I was getting into my 20s. I thought I was hip and cool, getting into the indie scene and all that. I was getting into the indie rock and stuff. So a cartoon at that time, I was burned very early on with cartoons with GI Joe at a very tender age when I got into GI Joe and the GI Joe comic books. I really enjoyed the comic book, but then when I'd watch the cartoon, it felt like a cop out to my young sensibilities. It's like, okay, yeah, the plane blew up, but you saw the guy with the parachute. No one died in
Right.
the cartoon. So I very early on, of course, they were trying to sell toys, so you can't really have people dying in a cartoon at that time anyway. So obviously there was a point to it, but my beginning of a cynicism started growing, and I was like, okay, well the real stuff is the comic books, and so anytime a cartoon came out, it was instantly kind of discounted in my mind because it's like, oh, it's going to be a less inferior product than the comic book. If you want the real stuff, you'd go to the comic book, and that was my sense
Right.
of it when the cartoon came out. It was a Saturday morning cartoon. I was too old for cartoons at that point. There was
Right.
that attitude during that time of, oh, you have to grow out of that crap. So I wasn't into it, and I think I might have watched an episode or two, but I was like, okay, I could watch this, but it looks like they're just going over the stories that I know, but they're telling
Hmm.
it in a different way.
That you're not.
And it's kind of a kiddified version. It's like if I wanted to read that, I would go back to the comic book, not watch this cartoon.
Right, right. No, I totally understand where you're coming from. Yeah, for me, it was a little bit different. Like, and like we're talking about like there was a lot more faithful adaptation from the animated show back in the day, and it came on 92 to 97, obviously. And I remember about around like 90, 91, 92. No, I am not gonna claim that I stuck with this through that entire
Hmm.
timeline. I didn't, because at that time, I maybe stuck around for the first 2 seasons when I was a kid,
Hmm.
but and then when I got older, like, the 3rd season is kinda iffy. I remember and I've gotta look this up, again, like, I remember the Savage Land, like, when they started to get into that, and then somewhere around there, I kinda fell off a cliff. So I never watched it through beginning to completion because by the time '97 hit, I was already going through middle school, getting ready, or actually, I was already in high school. So I
Hmm.
wasn't, like there was like a natural gap of like coming up, being 10 and then 11, and then, you forming a
Yeah,
teenager.
yeah.
But
When you start getting in high school, he's like, "Are you still watching cartoons?"
no,
That
and
was
no,
the attitude back then.
yeah, and by then I was already rotating out to more mature media like movies and stuff. Like that was kind of like where I went. Like the comic book kind of thing kind of fell away a little bit.
Yeah, and I appreciated the cartoon. Don't think I was
But
dissing on
you're
the
not
cartoon.
hating on it, is what
Right.
you're saying, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
It wasn't my bag at that time,
Right,
so
no,
to
no, no.
speak.
Yeah, and
And
I grew out of it. So, like,
I
two
yeah.
perspectives here, yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate it because it was introducing younger audiences to the X-Men,
Right,
which was a property that I loved at the time, and
right.
yeah, so I appreciate it, and the fact that there was toys. I was. Aged out. Yeah, I have aged back into toys, but
I think we
but
all
at the
do.
time, yeah, it was kind of cool looking at afar. As a 20-year-old, a aged 20-year-old, a very adult, at that time looking at it, it's like, oh, that's really cool. But yeah, no, but yeah, and I must have seen some of the episodes because when that theme song hit in, that da
Uh-huh.
na 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 na
Very,
na
very
na na,
iconic.
it triggered some stuff in my mind. So yeah, I must have at least watched some of it, but I don't remember. Now we watched the last 2 episodes of season 5, which was the last season. Descent and Graduation Day, right? Or Graduate, yeah,
Yeah,
was that the name of them?
yeah, I'll pull those up here in a minute. Yeah, I was just
Mm-hmm.
gonna, I'll roll up my thing. Like, for me, back in the day,
Uh
back
huh.
then, I
Yep.
had kind of like a three-legged stool, so to speak.
Uh
I
huh.
had the comics, And I remember this is like I don't want to a core memory. Jesus Christ, I'm lame. Sorry. Um, as I die of cringe for using that term. Anyway, okay, so I remember a few birthdays in a row of my grandparents gifting me a subscription to the X-Men comic book, and other comic, kind of like that thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember that very clearly. I also remember being into baseball and baseball cards
Mm-hmm.
and actually trading them around tops, that kind of thing. Like I love that stuff. And by natural extension, they made and I don't remember. I have to look it up, the details of it, like who, what company made it, did it. But I have fond memories of collecting X-Men trading cards, like that
Mm-hmm.
series. And you have they were just cool. Like I actually it was a friend and I did that together. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like in our group of boys
Mm-hmm.
or circle, that was like what we did. We traded, we went to the comic book shop. And then of course the other leg of the stool was like this animated show. It was
Mm-hmm.
very cool. And I also bought the action figures. Like I got the
Mm-hmm.
Wolverine one, I think for sure. I think I got Rogue, and I think I got maybe a couple more. I don't know, Colossus, maybe, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Excuse me, whatever the hell I got. But anyway, yeah, you're right. So let me bring that up. And you were saying,
Well, while you're bringing that up, you triggered in my mind. There's a lolcal out there named DSP. I think we've spoke about him before. He infamously has a story about a Wolverine action figure that his parents wouldn't get him, and but yeah, if you know, you know. I won't get into that.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah, I did. Yeah, so this was very big. I remember Saturday morning. Also amongst that.
Yeah, it went 5 seasons, so that's pretty good for an animated
Yeah, and
series.
and you're talking about like Saturday morning cartoons being a thing. That was from sometime in the 80s, maybe even the 70s. I don't know. I can't go back that far, but I know for
Hmm.
sure the latter half of the 80s onto the early 90s, up through the mid 90s, it was a thing. And it was something that
Oh
you were
yeah,
excited
in the
to.
70s, yeah, absolutely as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely, yeah. And I didn't mean to exclude. I don't have that. I wasn't alive in the 70s or the 60s or whatever. But
Right.
anyway, we certainly we got these wonderful things
Hmm.
that came on and appeared, and then they went all the way through 97.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
but
was. Yeah, back in the day, like just to expound upon that a little bit. For those of you that out there that don't have a streaming at your fingertips, you can watch cartoons all day if you wanted. With us, that we had the scheduled television, so you were kind of at the mercy of the television stations and their programming, and so they deemed cartoons only were available to you at certain times of day, and the majority of those came on Saturday
God, those
morning,
Voltex.
and and so yeah, and they would do seasons, and I
Mhm.
think they would premiere in like September or something like that, and I remember like especially in comic books you would get like a ad of all the brand new animated series that were coming out for Saturday morning, and that was always an exciting time. Is like getting up that first Saturday morning of the new season and watching all the new stuff. Expecting like amazing things and then kind of being like, okay, it's okay.
I
But yeah, every once in a while you'd have those standouts like X-Men.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just remember, just fond memories of the weekend, and of that. And God, YouTube is perfect for all of this stuff. I remember
uh,
getting, probably about a year ago around this time, or maybe summer. It was more like summer. I fell into a few YouTube holes of like nostalgic commercials, like from the
yeah.
80s, like the ones that I had. I remember them like some version of that. Good God, all the way through the night. It was a poisonous trip. But God, if I didn't watch a good view, and I tried to rope my daughter into them, and like, hey, this is what, look what your old man had to watch, anyway. But yeah, so yeah, you were saying you were covering of the last two episodes
Yeah.
of the original animated series, which is well
Yeah.
regarded, and it's got two things going for it. It's one, it covered generations. You and I are typical examples of that on one side or the other. And then you also have the fact that it is this thing that is beloved by all of us. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of I don't think there's a lot of excuse making because I think it was a pretty good quality for its own. Is it up there with like Batman Beyond kind of quality, like Oscar level, award winning? Probably not. But
Yeah.
it's not far away either. I mean, let's be honest.
Right.
As far as nostalgia goes, if we're talking about that kind of thing.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed with the credits of the original series is Bob Harris was noted as the story consultant, which I believe he was like a Xmen editor or something from the comic book. So they and then in fact a lot of the stuff they pulled from a lot of the storylines they pulled from the comic books. I hopefully Chris Claremont got paid for those. Probably not, but but yeah, but yeah, so
Unfortunately, unfortunately, it's not just Omnicorp buying out a whole property and screwing,
yeah,
or forcing their families or the heirs of their families, their estates, to sue them to get better terms. Occasionally,
right.
you see that see those clusters of lawsuits that kick off.
But
It
but
is what it is.
shout out to Chris Claremont. He does have a limited mini series out on Marvel. Wolverine Manipur Nights. So if you're a big Chris Claremont fan, issue 2 came out last week. So if you're a big fan, take a look at that. It takes place during his the original run of the Wolverine comic books. That's when it takes place. So late '90s, early, yeah, about '90s. So if this series kind of makes you enamored with the X-Men again, maybe check that out. But yeah, so Descent, that was an interesting episode to watch. Yeah, we just picked the last two at random, but yeah, this is sort of like the origin story of Sinister, Mr. Sinister, and it kind of tells me that the cancellation of the series was kind of a surprise to the people because this is sort of like maybe building up his backstory for future episodes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, it was. I mean, there's not much time to spend, but it was. You can tell like they were looking. I agree with you. I don't think I could say it any better than you did, but it was. The origin of how Mr. Sinister came about, that sort of thing. Well, we might talk about that a little bit later in some side talk.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and Mr. Sinister, that era of I know I read some of the first issues with him, but that was about the time I noped out of X-Men, so I don't know a whole lot
I,
about Mr. Sinister. I know the original like stories of his, the ones that Chris Claremont wrote, but yeah, beyond that I don't know much. But yeah, Graduation Day, another one that ends on a cliffhanger. That the '97, the new series, kind of
absolutely did.
picks up from. But yeah, obviously they were ending it with the cliffhanger and maybe hoping for future seasons. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
they expected it to be like a few decades later, but.
right, right, right. And you can see the amazing amount of anime or photos they have in IMDb. It is what it is. But yeah, this one set the stage for like where we were at. And it was well. Without further ado, we might as well jump into the new one, or like the main event here. What were the episodes here? Pardon me. Good grief. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So obviously we knew what part of the world we were in with a Descent and Graduation Day. A very 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 smooth crossover. At this point we're seeing the well, nobody knew that we would never see this again until it became a stocking stuffer for a big megacorp. Like, and that's not really true, but um, I would say breaking into the new show here,
Yeah,
and
and to Disney's credit, they greenlit this. They could have just did a soulless reboot of X Men, the 2024
it
or 2024 version of it, and
it
they
yeah
could have just just totally wiped the slate clean and threw in random X-Men XYZ, and you would have. It would be what it is, but they decided to go, or at least the people that created this show went with a continuation of the original series.
Yeah. Now, the thing too is, I remember when they announced it, it was a surprise. And it was a big question mark for people. Like, wait, what are they going to do? Kind of. And then it kind of lay dormant for a long time, and then got pushed back, like you mentioned. And then finally, here we are. And they released the trailer and stuff, and we didn't cover the trailer because we're not that in the weeds with this.
Right, yeah,
With
you wouldn't
certain
catch us. We
franchises.
wouldn't be crying, oh my god, they're doing it. Yeah, you wouldn't
No,
get
I
that.
think a lot of people. I will say, I think I did not hear a lot of shit talking. Just to be flat out, I didn't hear a lot of shit talking before it, because there is
No, there's a lot of love for it, yeah.
well, I'm not gonna lie. There's a point when you're just a online netizen, a nerd online or whatever. There's times like where you have to avoid certain angles of the blogosphere, right? Or just to the chattering class, because you know if
Trolls are
you're
gonna troll, man.
well, if you're, I'm not, no, I wouldn't even call them trolls. I would just say, like, they maybe have a valid opinion, maybe not, whatever. But like, to me, this is a perfect example of the quality of a review you get from the people that you watch online, as a bellwether. Because if something is legitimately good and they are honest, they'll tell you that. But if they don't, you're just gonna pick one thing, and then they're gonna nosedive on it, which is fine. I'm not saying that you can't do that. Of course, you can do whatever you want, right? But like this, to me, like, I had more positive to say than negative. I will say that. I don't know what, for me, like, did it deliver on, like, picking up exactly, like, where the other one left off or whatever? Like, I guess kind of, sort of, yeah. I mean, but, like, I'm gonna be kind of pretty loose there and fair, because we're talking about a gap of so many years. I do have some things I would have liked to see better, and some contradictory things that I saw that didn't make any sense. Like, like, versus that. But, like, I mean, what did you think? Kind of coming into this, from, like, watching the last two, and then coming into this one, like, for your fresh eyes, because you don't have the baggage of, like, nostalgia or whatever, like I would, or other people do. Like, what were your thoughts?
Well, yeah,
The
the
spotlight on you.
no, yeah, I've changed my angles so there's a little bit more space around me.
Right
So,
on.
but yeah, I got my Chewbacca and Twin Peaks posters. But yeah, the original series, obviously, it had I think watching it. I'm not really into American animation.
Mm.
I think I've said this to you on a previous podcast. That it just doesn't hit my sweet spot. I'm more. I'm just not really big into animation, and I would probably lean more towards anime. Although yeah, there's just certain types of anime. I wouldn't call myself a weeboo or whatever they call themselves.
No.
But yeah, so yeah, it's so yeah, I kind of I appreciate what they're doing with the original series. But yeah, the animation was a bit weak. Like I said,
Mm.
the audio was atrocious. But yeah, so what they did with this new series is obviously they elevated the animation. Animation looks great. There's nothing to say too bad about it. It's just very. And I guess the thing I don't like about American animation, I guess current or like back in the day during the 80s and 90s, it was very uniform. I liked the animation that I do like is like Looney Tunes or
Hmm.
stuff like that that has a personality. That's what you say. Well, you like comic books. Why don't you like animation? With comic books, you got great artists like Arthur Adams and
Hmm.
Jack Kirby and all these great artists that puts their own style to it. And with animation, you get this obviously you got several people animating it, so you gets a very uniform kind of look to it. Saturday morning cartoons became very uniform in the way they looked,
Right.
and obviously they didn't have a whole lot of money to spend on the animation, so everything kind of stilted, and then the action wasn't all there, So it is what it is, and so with this new series, obviously they got more money to spend on it, so it's very more engaging as far as the action.
Hmm.
There's the obviously the animation's better. The voice actors maybe marginally better. They're probably about on par with the original
I
series.
I'll have some thoughts later, but yeah, and a bone, maybe a slight bone to pick with the animation quality or whatever, but from a different angle, perhaps.
But yeah, as far as nostalgia, the thing was, I've been going through. Marvel's been putting out omnibus collections of Chris Claremont's run on the X-Men,
Mm.
and the volume that I just finished reading a few months back that came out last year was this storyline with Xavier going away and Magneto coming into becoming one of the X-Men, and the
Right.
leader of the X-Men, at least the head of the school. So yeah, I kind of struggled with especially the second episode with how they kind of played it out. It made sense for the cartoon, obviously. They have to tell it the way they have to. They don't have the history of the characters within the comic book to draw from and tell the story that the comic book told. So they had to adapt it. But I think obviously the story within the comic book was way more stronger than what was presented in the cartoon. I appreciated the cartoon, but yeah, the first episode was okay. We got to be introduced to DaCosta, Sunspot, new character from the New Mutants, and it's kind of disheartening that we don't get the origin stories of the New Mutants from how they originally were introduced. So we lose all of those cool storylines unless they
Right.
rework it into it. But yeah, it's interesting that they are kind of pulling those characters in. But yeah. It is what it is, which is I think a love letter to the original series.
I
They're doing their continuations. There's going to be, there's been years between the two, so there's going to be varying opinions on the success of what they're doing. But yeah, I mean, I can't really throw too many stones at it.
Right. Well, I would say this. I would come in from this angle. I Okay. If we're gonna start the fresh slate, right? We have Disney Plus, right? We have What If animated. The first season, I enjoyed it very much. Um, the second season, I don't know what it is about it. It's not that I hate it. It's not that I love it. It's just that like I have it on tap, ready to go to watch it. But for whatever reason, I'm just not motivated to. I don't want to right now. It's not an indictment on its quality or whatever. I've heard varying things of whatever, which is
Yeah,
whatever. So
I'm about halfway through. It
and,
starts
and
off really strong. There's some really good episodes, some okay, but yeah.
well, then what was your take on What If season one?
About the same.
All right, right on.
There's some good stuff. There's some bad stuff.
No, I
Some
agree with that.
some in between. With an anthology
Right,
series, you're going to have a mixed bag. Obviously,
right,
they're telling contained stories. Actually, with this new season, they have some connecting episodes and connecting from the previous season too, especially with the. Captain Carter. She sort of becomes the star of this season. But yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I think they went more woman centric, which Disney. It seems like
well, it is Disney.
Disney Marvel is has been focusing on the female characters. For the
Right.
most part, it's been successful. I mean, they've been some interesting stories. But yeah, I haven't finished it. I think I've got like 4 or 5 left to
Yeah, no,
watch. So,
I've not heard anything bad. I just haven't got around to it, right? But okay, so setting the table coming into this, I thought the quality was really good. Um, I was about mixed bag on the audio for the different characters or whatever, and I'm not talking about age. Okay, I understand people age, their voice changes. That's not my gripe. That's not even that didn't register. For me, it was more about the energy of the character, and it just kind of landed more flat to me on that. Coming into the first episode of these two, of the two, I think they were about equal for me for general quality and content, I guess. I'm not gonna say like one did worse than the other. I think they were about even. They were solid hits, I think. Um, I guess I should go in with my gripes maybe a little bit more, and lean into that. Like, I don't understand this, and this is a me thing, so I'll own it. All right. Um, there is a little bit of just a little bit of noise, not so much signal coming into this, right? That unfortunately I'd seen, I guess maybe whatever that is. But has to do with how some of the characters were drawn and portrayed. Um, I think that Cyclops they nailed Wolverine. They nailed uh, uh, Gambit for sure. You know, they nailed Jean Grey for. I think they could have done maybe. Well, we'll see. But um, there are some character Beast they nailed. They nailed Xavier. They nailed Magneto. I think they nailed more than they didn't. But I don't understand how they could get Storm right, but Miss Rogue. Like, like it was not the same Rogue there. I think the voice was fine. I don't really, I can't have any severe criticisms of the voices because they did work. And even like I just kind of thought that Wolverine's lines were a little bit more forced than that. Like I just think they were kind of like AI meme generator, and like as long as you hit and bub and like some kind of punchy Wolverine type voice, whatever, that's fine. Um, but I overall I didn't have any issues with the storyline as it continued up and picked on. Um, well, and with that, like they're not inventing new ground here. I was kind of a little bit I kind of felt like I fall off a cliff and kind of landed somewhere else, not on the ground, like expected, like a splat on the ground, like with kind of the intonations of like they dissolve when they go from the old to the new. They dissolve the in spoiler warning. I should say spoiler warning. We're at 3/4 of the way through the show, 43 minutes, whatever. So spoiler if you don't like that, click off. Whatever. And God bless you if you made it this far. Anyway, but and like, comment, subscribe too. Tell us what you think. But there was a very romantic interest there with Rogue and Gambit in the original series. That was kind of like the original Pam and Jim like type setup. But now it's kind of like it's moved on to like Magneto, and now there's some kind of like intrigue here with it, which whatever. Like I'm not saying for or against. I'm just saying it was all right.
yeah, no, I mean that's true to the comic book. That kind
Right.
of
Oh,
that
absolutely.
triangle kind
91.
of comes
Yeah.
up. Yeah. But yeah.
Actually, let me
I
go there while we're talking here. Like,
And I guess another thing I didn't like about the original cartoon when it originally came out was that they just kind of went with the most popular X-Men. A lot of the ones that I would have wanted to watch in a cartoon would have been Nightcrawler and Colossus, and
Nightcrawler for
I
sure.
was kind
Absolutely.
of my favorite character was always Kitty Pryde, and they replaced her with Jubilee, which was a lesser Kitty Pryde in my opinion. So yeah, it was sort of like, okay, well, you just grabbed all of the ones that people liked. I was never a big Gambit fan. In fact, I probably hated him for
I,
when he first was introduced into it. So
I
yeah, I don't know.
I'll put it this way. In my channeling my inner 10-year-old, all right, going back to the original series and like where they rated on who I cared about, right, or who was
Hmm.
lame. Um, okay, I'll just be honest. Like Jubilee, absolute fucking shit take garbage teammate. Like if you were in danger and like somebody came to your rescue when it was fucking Jubilee, you're fucked. Pardon my language, but like like lame. In other words, lame. But like whatever. You don't like spend too much time on that when you're a kid. You just kind of ignore it. But Gambit was at least useful. Like I agree with you. I didn't really like the character per se. It was kind of like to me like a throwaway, kind of like part of the team, but like like if we're gonna be the boys about it, like they're like the weakest. They're like they make fun of there's like a satire whole subplot in the boys, like where it has the Aquaman like character of like and like he's made out to be an ostracized character on purpose, right? So like it's
Hmm.
like okay, well you can talk to fish, and he does some other things with fish that are we're not there, but well, this is a
Hmm.
family. Not a family friendly channel, I would say, but like we're more closer to that than we are like like shock jocks over here. But yeah, I think that I don't understand how they can give curves. I'll just put it this way: I don't understand how they can give curves to a couple of characters and then just kind of like you just get this very blasé lack of quality of Rogue's character and how she's written or animated. And the new series does not work for me. I'll just be flat out.
Well,
That's probably
and
the hardest negative. Now, is that negative thing? Does that give me justification to kind of sharpshoot and take this whole thing down? No, I don't think so. I don't think it. But it just kind of. I just don't. I don't get it. Like I don't get how you can make Rogue or Storm how she is, and then you have Rogue, and Rogue is very boxy, and I don't know, like
well,
I don't know how to put it.
if you want to complain about Rogue, I could complain about Storm. They did Storm wrong in the new series as well.
Didn't they just give her a mohawk, like, and she had longer hair, and before she got to that, like they
Well,
kind of jumped over that point to me, if anything.
right. Well, they kind of shortchanged her. They did the storyline where Forge accidentally shoots. And in the comic book, it was Rogue that weapon was shot at, and it was Forge that was charged with stealing Rogue's power. She was kind of a rogue, so to speak, rogue villain that the X-Men had. Brought into their wing, and during that storyline and comic book, the Shield and I think was after her, and Forge shoots her and zaps her of her powers. Was going to, but the Storm got in the way, and she lost her powers. And the whole thing was Storm was the leader of the X-Men at that time. That was the prime time when I was reading.
Yep.
In fact, she did not run in the comic book. She actually went ahead and led the X-Men without her powers, which was a very strong statement for her character.
Absolutely.
Obviously, she had struggles, but
In the
she,
90s.
yeah,
In
she's
the
such a
90s and
yeah,
80s too, actually.
80s. But yeah, she was such a
Yeah,
strong,
actually, you're right.
it was such a strong character that she couldn't run. I mean, I think she stepped away for a few issues to kind of deal with it, but yeah, she never ran from it. In fact, she remained the leader of the X-Men. So yeah, I mean, she was the one that was there. So yeah, how they're playing it out, they kind of have to play it out that way, I guess, with how the story's structured. But yeah, it's not really true to the Storm character.
Yeah, no, I can nitpick and gripe a little bit. I'll say this. I'm going to show up for the next 2 episodes for sure, right? Am I going to stick around for the whole series? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I know that this thing has legs. I will say this. I will say, I'll give the most top level praise that I can give. Um, this was a badly needed hit for the MCU, just in general, and they did a good job for the most part. I got it. But as far as like nitpicking, just kind of going in the road. Like I don't understand how I don't understand that. Like,
Hmm.
but for the most part, like I also heard some kind of obscure criticism about how they handled a couple different things, like the content of the second episode. Like, I didn't get that at all. Like, if you watch the very last season, like it was like something that always happened. There was like a big, broad group of people that don't like the mutants or like whatever, and they weasel their way into some kind of way to screw it up.
Yeah, I think you kind of when you try to I don't know with well, it's in the spirit of a Saturday morning cartoon, and I don't think maybe it's trying to elevate it a little bit, but I mean it's not going for the stars or trying to create something like say the like Star Wars Bad Batch or something like that. They're not trying to shoot above their belt, so to speak. And
Yeah.
when you get try to criticize a cartoon too much, you kind of start to look kind of foolish a little bit because it is a cartoon. But
Well,
but yeah,
I would say though, that the comic book as an art form used to be not respected at all, right? Like
right.
it was and this is the very bottom foundation of what a nerd is, right? Like
Right.
it was out of sorts. It was only a few folks liked it, or kids. You're very dismissible. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm well. Comic books is kind of as a medium is sort of like saying TV or movies, but with cartoons, and you could say cartoons and then refer to. But when I say cartoons, I'm talking specifically of Saturday
Oh, right.
morning cartoon, geared mainly towards getting those kids to buy those action figures. So the story was never never a king in the minds of the people producing the show. But yeah, I mean the original one and this one, to its credit, is going to the well of the comic books to pull the stories, but they're adapting it to an
A
audience,
new medium, right?
a new medium, and they're doing they're making a cartoon of it, so to speak. And yeah, I it's like I said, it's not there's animation and cartoons that like I said go above and become art. And I don't know if this is what its aim is.
I I don't think that and I'm a big fan of the DC animated universe. I've always said, "Hey, you don't like what you see on the big screen? That's fine. Go find go randomly. Go find some Justice League or Superman or Batman DC animated movie, and there's like dozens at this point. Probably, like it's very widespread. Those to me are sophisticated. They're of such a higher level quality than this.
Yeah.
This is a different. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that it's a different step down in what
Yeah.
you're talking about and what you're achieving. Do they get do they try to be sophisticated? I think they try to. And I think they nail it. And like for example, Magneto is a complex character. Um, I got that for just if I was a normie and I was watching this, I didn't know who any of these damn people were, and I watched the Magneto character, I would absolutely accept that there's a very deep layer there ready to go. And for the most part, I think they hit the high points and they nailed the complexity of a Magneto to draw you in. That's kind of the whole
Hmm.
point. Well, what do you mean this guy was the enemy of this? And like
Hmm.
they did it in very good quality. I think they tried to make this as quality as they could with what they were given,
Yep.
and I think they mostly hit that mark. And I think that they did that by yes, yes, they adapted it to a new medium, different medium, but for the most part, now they're flirting with the whole point. Like that's the whole point. Like why we're focusing on the rogue Magneto thing because like that's kind of the subtext that kind of bubbles up of that. Well, okay, well they entered the arena. They entered the arena with pulling that into the mix. So,
Yeah,
it might be worth sticking around for 3, 4, 5, 6, episodes. And I think they've already got the first 2 seasons built out anyway. Um,
really.
the
Yeah.
I believe they're all there, ready
Hmm.
to go. They
Yeah.
might have to do some finishing things, but they already have 2 seasons worth of content ready to go.
Yeah.
And obviously we're seeing that, and they fire the showrunner, that Brian DeMeo guy, for whatever. But I will
Yeah.
give them this. I think that they've stuck to the core material maybe better than
Hmm.
um, what we've got,
Well,
like with
yeah.
other things, like where the
That's
original source media is just we're not doing that. We're gonna do something different. And if you don't like it, screw you.
Yeah, yeah, it's that's one thing that they are doing is that, like I said, the storylines are very recognizable, even though they've changed them up a little bit to adapt it. But yeah, at the core of X Men, if I was going to, it's much beloved. Chris Claremont is one of my favorite writers, if not my favorite comic book writer. But he does deal in melodrama. He does it is at the core a soap opera between these characters, maybe a elevated, uh, but it is
But he did it
it
very
plays
well,
right,
though,
right,
right?
yeah, it's a play of emotions, and it really gets you in the feels a lot of the times, and yeah, it may be yeah, melodrama, but it's very complex. So he likes to throw in um, these storylines and plot twists that makes you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is, he does a lot of teasers and a lot of a lot of follow through, but there are sometimes he would plant things that never go to fruition, which
Mhm.
now he's able to he's kind of coming back with various limited series and kind of
Oh, right,
developing
right.
and following up on some of those that were planted. But yeah, that's because with comic books you kind of have to kind of plan ahead storylines, and unfortunately if you maybe leave a series before your time, actually I think Chris Claremont kind of felt he left, but I think he felt like he was being forced out. So
Mm.
so there was probably a lot of stories that he planned on following up on that he wasn't able to. That's my speculation, but yeah. So yeah, they have that core of good stories that they're building from. But again, if I wanted to revisit those stories, I'd go back to
You
the
want
comic
the
books.
original.
And in fact, I'm building out my Chris Claremont collection with those omnibuses. So I have these really nice hardcover books that I could go back to read those stories now, and without worrying about damaging my original comics. And obviously, there digital comics is a thing as well. But yeah, so I encourage you out there, if you've never read the Chris Claremont run of X Men, to go out there, read it however you can. I know our friend Jay is kind of frustrated with his trying to read the Chris Claremont collection because those omnibuses that I'm collecting do go sell out. They don't print out. I'm sure they're expensive to produce,
Mm.
so they only do a limited quantities of them. So you're probably your best bet is to get them digitally. Collecting them as the original issues would be kind of costly to you at this point. But yeah, I encourage you to revisit Chris Claremont's run of X Men. It was fun watching the cartoons, but I think I've got my feel of the X Men cartoons. I don't think I'll be following anymore.
Yeah, I think I'm about 2 episodes behind you, in all honesty, and it's not love or hate, whatever, any
Yeah,
of
it's
that.
just
It
not for
it's
me. And again, it's American animation. It just doesn't entice me. It doesn't appeal to me. I know you really love the DC animation, and I see
right.
the quality
No,
of the
I get it.
stories, and I've tried some of them and enjoyed the stories. It's just the animation's just so uniform to me that it doesn't have the life and the energy that I want from an animated thing. So
No,
yeah.
I told Jay this, on the side. I told him, you know after this whole thing, and never mind the show, like just say that I wanted to go back and watch, because I would. I am the type of person who would go back and watch or rewatch like maybe the last season 5 of the animated, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I would do that normally, whether I did whether we did this thing or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that kind of nerd, like, and I know I'm not different than most folks out there that like
Right. Right.
whatever, which is fine. But like, okay, let's put it this way. So we covered Ninja Kaimui, right?
Mm-hmm.
Months past. I find myself, like, I would be more looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
Fresh IP, probably has no future, more than likely, whatever. That's fine. I felt more drawn to the draw to me to watch this is just on like, okay, you hinted at this rogue thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going with this? Um, So I'll probably give it, 2 or 3 at most, maybe 4, really at the outer limit. Unle and I'll give myself a caveat the out of, like, maybe I fall in love with it or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
that could happen, certainly. But
Mm-hmm.
I would find myself being more drawn to, um, showing up to go finish watch Ninja Kaimui
Well,
and
that.
having more fun and being more drawn in,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like it's not a contest, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna watch that because it's like so much more engaging to my
Yeah. The
sensibilities nowadays. And
Yeah,
I reckon
yeah, and the animation is so engaging as well. I
right,
mean, it's
right.
very dynamic and very interesting. And yeah, the again with the anime, a lot of the styles are
Right.
very stylized and specific to the original manga, which is very specific to the artists of that anime. Which with again with this animation is very uniform. It's there's only a 10 degrees difference between this animation and DC animation. It's the stories that make the difference.
Yeah, no, I would disagree on that assessment. But I would say that uh you know you have this, and you have like a Ninja Kaimui or something like that, or a Gundam, which like I don't I think I've said about it a little bit here and there, but like the last few years, regardless of whatever, like I'm slowly getting into the Gundam universe. And to me, like the more that I get pulled in, like, and I'm talking about the original print material, like it is so advanced and so it just hits the feels for sci-fi. It feels like it was made for me. I'll just put it that way. Like that's, of course, any fan that loves that, honeymoon phase or not, you're gonna find that in spades. I'll stick around, like I said, for a few more. But if we don't turn the corner or whatever, like, I mean, I don't know that we're gonna be talking about the show again. Let's just put it that way, like, unless there's, like, some justification there to warrant it, and, like,
Yep.
and if you love this, if you just absolutely love this, like, that's great. Like, nobody's raining on your parade from our perspective at all.
No. Yeah.
Like, please enjoy it and spread it around, like, and of course, hopefully, more importantly, and I talked about this too, like, from Dune Part 2, like, that I speculated that Denny would his hope would be that you would come into the fold of Dune, and you would go read the book, go
Mm-hmm.
read the series, go whatever, or comic book or whatever, because there's really great Dune comic book stuff out there too, I would say. Um, that I've read. I haven't necessarily covered it here, but like, um, but it goes with the territory or whatever. But like, yeah, no, there we go. Now we're doing. Now we're cooking. Yeah. No, like I think it was good. You know,
Yeah, and
I,
I'm not dissing it just because it's Disney.
I'm
I'm gonna finish the second season of What If, and I haven't started it
right.
yet because I keep forgetting that it's that it's coming out. But the final season of Bad Batch, Star Wars Bad Batch animated, is coming out, and I love that series.
Right
Very
on.
much a great series. It's a continuation of the Clone Wars. Clone Wars were great, which Ahsoka and a lot of the came from Clone Wars and Rebels. That whole section of Star Wars I really love. So yeah, I'm still in on Disney animation. It's just that that portion of it, because I'm more of a CGI. I'm more engaged with the CGI animation than say the traditional American
Ooh, right.
current day animation. Like I said, I like a much more engaging animation like Looney Tunes. I know
Mhm.
the creator John Kay is much maligned these days, but Ren and Stimpy was one of my favorite cartoons of all time. Which,
It
you
was
know,
amazing.
yeah, when during the in fact during the '90s, when when Xmen was coming out, I was more engaged with Ren and Stimpy whenever an episode would come out of that, which was rare and far between. I was very much engaged with that. So, which kind of fit in with that indie kind of scene that I was into at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would just say I think I think we it would be safe to say that we both would recommend, the general audience out there to watch it and see what they think.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
stick to it,
If you were a fan of the original series and grew up with it, loved it,
You're gonna be very in
yeah,
love with it.
yeah,
I'll put that way.
you'll get the feels, I'm sure,
You'll
at
get
least.
more of the feel than not. You'll get the fizz, like
Yep.
to adopt or steal a term.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's good for what it is, but it's just not for me.
yeah, and I wanted to give a shout out to Robert Meyer Burnett, who's I don't think I've recommended him on the show before, but he runs on YouTube. I love his opinion because he takes a very pragmatic approach, right? He's got the history and the lore, all that, but he also has he wants to love something, right? Like, and maybe somebody out there would not like that approach, but like, he does it from from the heart, right? Um,
Hmm.
so I saw him, like somebody was nitpicking on the show, and he shared this out on Twitter, and I had to cop it and then and amplify it. We put that way, but like, and of course, whenever you see an original, thing, this just draws you in. It makes me want to go find that episode and read it before and read it after. That's the fun part. But I will say, well, while we're coming up to the end of our show here, we're gonna get into our incidentals because there's a few things that I wanna talk about and get your take on. Excuse me here. Uh, oh, I was gonna say, oh, let me turn that one down. Oh, yep. Anyway, sorry. Getting there. And then I was gonna say I also saw going from X-Men to Reboot. X-Men is clearly the arc that eventually we're gonna get to, and it's been speculated that we'll get there by route of Deadpool in the middle of summer, and we'll see where it goes. But I just want to kind of talk about this for just a moment. Oop, wrong one. There's a channel out there, everything always, I believe is what it is. I'll put the link in the thing a little bit later. But there's talk of like bringing in Mr. Sinister as the primary one of the next big whenever X-Men hits. And basically there is speculation and talk out there like where they have the core of something, but they need staff and they need the next stage to go forward. So a little bit of a future kind of talk thing, but like when I saw that, it actually got me excited. Like I don't know why, but I'm a fan. I love to be more happy than sad, where possible. So like this was like one of those rare things that like, and I'm pretty well worn for a fan. I've been disappointed a million times like everybody else, but I saw this and like this is kind of cool. Like if Disney MCU can get their stuff together and get back on track for quality, um, whatever the thing is, like we're waiting. Like, I'll just put this: we are all desperately, desperately, desperately waiting for that to come back to us, like to invite that in. But um,
But sometimes yeah, you start feeling like the abused wife, you know. It's like, well, maybe he'll be nice to me now, but
I
yeah.
I know. This is just it's not it's a way to keep hope alive, I guess, or like whatever. Like, but
Yeah,
you
I
know,
know. Yeah. I mean,
this is
it's
so far out that one we don't even know that it's going to happen or at anything. But like, and I'm taking it from a more normie, positive channel. They don't talk about the politics of it. They don't talk about that. They just they're given something, and then they find something newsworthy or whatever to enhance their way to talk about how they talk to this insider or that insider or whatever, like whatever, blah blah blah. So, grain of salt, boulder of salt. But with that being said, I did want to no, are you looking forward, or would you give Disney, a leash? I would say, like if they were to bring back X-Men or go into that or Final Four or whatever, in absence of like thing, like would you show up, like, or what would cause you to show up for one of
well,
those?
yeah. Like I said, the only thing that would save Marvel Disney right now would be X Men, Fantastic Four. So we'll see what they do with the Fantastic Four. I haven't seen anything that would make me be alarmed with Fantastic Four at this
Sure, right,
point. They obviously they're leaning more towards Sue Storm, but she's sort of like one of the strongest characters in that.
and that's fine.
So it makes sense. It makes sense to make her the focus of that because she is sort of like the more interesting character of the four characters. Johnny Storm's just the kind of
Rebel,
the average. Well, no,
rebel without a cause.
well, just the all American kind of kid with a little devilish streak to him. And the thing is the thing, and Mr. Fantastic's the brainiac. So he's sort of they're all kind of one dimensional, and Sue's the only one that really has. Well, the thing is multi-dimensional in the fact that he's struggling with being who he is. So if you're not going to focus on Sue, you really should focus on the thing. They're focusing on Sue, which makes sense. So yeah, it makes sense for what their ideals of what they want to focus on at this point being a female perspective. It makes sense for this instead of kind of wedging it into some story that maybe it wouldn't fit normally. So yeah, that's good, cool. X-Men, lots and lots of strong characters there. So yeah, if you want the female focus on that, you could focus on Storm or someone else. It's there. As far as me looking forward or being hopeful, I'm neither. I'm
Mm,
sort of like I'm not spending any time thinking about this.
right.
If when it shows up on my door, if it looks good, I might go. But yeah, like I said, there's so many other things that are engaging and
Right.
interesting. If you're spending most of your time praying for something or something, you're just kind of building yourself for disappointment. And then if it is successful, obviously you're gonna shout from the rooftops that you were right. You were right all the time. But is that really worth it? I mean, go out there and find something instead of waiting for something. Go out there and find something that's engaging to you. Find something that's that kind of tickles your fancy, and if the only thing that tickles your fancy is waiting for this, okay,
Right.
well, do your thing, man.
Right. Yeah. Well, and with that said, I think we could put the X-Men thing to bed or what. I am.
Yep.
I have to believe and hope that they're gonna do right by one of these things at some point, right?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, you can't make a friggin' mountain so big and awesome as we had in the first 10 years of the MCU,
Yep.
and then the trailing off as we are today,
Hmm.
without hopefully they figured out, like, without compromising the thing or fighting with the fans or any of that malarkey,
Right. Yeah. Towards while we were talking about this, I kept kind of flashing back to we're both in a Dune group
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah, yeah.
Facebook, and there's and also our talk about Dune Part Two, which if you haven't watched, you can watch that. Both the movie and
Get
our
us up to
podcast on
10K.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, yeah, we're very close. But yeah, the fact that a lot of people in that group are always like, they discount all the follow up books by Frank Herbert's son, and also all the
they
movies
do.
not being true to the books. The core of that group is always expounding, hey, it's the books. Read the Frank Herbert's books. Those are the Bible. And I kept thinking, well, that's sort of the way I am here. I was like, okay,
Right.
Chris Claremont's X-Men is the Bible. You should go back to that. And it's really, I guess, a lot of it is what you found first. So I found the comic books first. I love that. So that's always going to be the heart and soul of it to me. Whereas maybe you did find, you were a kid during the '90s, you found the X-Men cartoon, and that's your Bible. And okay, well, that the original stuff, which is Chris Claremont stuff, maybe it's cool to you, but somewhat, but it's always been the cartoon that really got you going, and that's cool. I think both perspectives are cool. I know
Right.
on that Doom board, there's a lot of bashing back and forth, and we're just recently I had a little bit of fun in one of the discussions, but playing with some people, but and then that's can be fun on those boards, but I think you shouldn't take it too seriously. And again, appreciate other people's perspectives. Again, if you're really into the cartoon and love it and are celebrating the new series, more power to you. I encourage people to find the stuff that they love and stick with it. Don't listen to the talking heads that say that they're wrong, that you're wrong. Just enjoy what you enjoy.
Well, and there's no cause for like like a jihad about it, a
No.
Butlerian jihad. And with that being said, I would say, actually, let me put this up here. Sadly, as we bounce back and forth, like what you like and enjoy what you like, and spread it around. If it's good, and you like it and you want to talk about it, like that's the thing. But unfortunately, unfortunately, Werner Vinge, a sci-fi author, unfortunately, he passed away the day that X-Men '97 came out. Unfortunately, but he is a famous author. Won some Hugo Awards on A Fire Upon the Deep, and A Deepness in the Sky, and then that was the No Zone trilogy. But in any case, go check him out. like, go check him out, and you will not be disappointed to remember this author, or maybe it's your first introduction. Like, is he my most favorite of all time? No, but like when I went through like a tear of like anything I could get my hands on. Like I pulled in one of his, few of his. I got to finish out that series if I'm honest, but like it's still good. The first two books are really good, engaging. It's a kind of a different um, rotation of how they present things. But he passed away. But also like more fun news, or more happy news. Um, William Shatner is 93, and that was this past Friday. So God bless, and happy birthday to William Shatner. And if you would ever see us, we would absolutely welcome you on here, and we promise we will not ask you anything stupid or anything that you don't want to talk about. You want to talk about alfalfa farms in Canada, up there in the prairie lands up there? Sure, let's
and
do it.
and
I
and
will tell
uh,
you no.
and we promise not to ambush you with a surprise guest, George Takai. That would and have a rumble between the two of you. No.
No, yeah, God bless George Takai too, but yeah, no, thank you, no.
No, yeah.
William Shatner stays out of the politics and this and that, and other people, they do what they do, but like whatever that is, but that's fine. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like Republicans
Yep.
buy shoes too, like I think Michael Jordan said, or
Um,
whatever.
but yeah, I'll always bet on Shatner.
Right.
always been. But yeah, yeah. Happy birthday, Shatner. He was always. I'm always that the original OG Star Trek. That was always my bag. So,
TOS.
yep, yep. So yeah, yeah. And if we're kind of wrapping up and kind of going through our checklist of things, I did finish the. Uh, Malazan Book of the Fallen.
Oh yes, you
I
did. Yeah.
finished book 10, so look forward to my review of that and wrap up of the whole series video. And then but yeah, it's kind of it was very satisfying. Just spoiler alert, but yeah, it's a very satisfying series. Definite recommend. But yeah, so but yeah, and there's several books in that universe that are left for me to read. A prequel and a sequel to that series by the same author, and then his friend also wrote. I think at this point 10 books that take place within that series, which I haven't even tried his books yet. So yeah, there's all that for me. So yeah, I'm finished. So it's a little bittersweet. After yeah, I've read the series for 9 months now. So it's been with me since I lost my job. I was reading it right when I lost my job, and it's been with me this whole time to the point where I've gotten a new job, and yeah, it's kind of like letting a friend go
Well,
at
it's a
this
memory
point.
maker. I know, I
Hmm.
know, I know 100% of what you're talking about because life happens to all of us. We get up, we wake up, we do our thing, we do our best, and sometimes, like there are very specific science fiction books that I read during troubled times, or
Hmm.
whatever, or just in general that you kind of started or whatever, and you finish, and you remember that like that.
Hmm.
You carry a fraction of that part of life with you for the next whatever. So the next time you pick up a book, like it's a flood of memories, like as it should be. But like, yeah, no,
Yep.
I am looking forward to yours, and
Hmm.
then I'm hoping to clear my sci-fi docket out,
Hmm.
and then and front load these and a few other fantasy ones because
Hmm.
I really need to get into the fantasy angle,
Hmm.
because apparently there's some really good stuff that's not
Hmm.
George R. R. Martin. I'm not
Hmm.
crapping on that. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like what about Brandon? In the Wheel of Time series, like what about these? What about these other ones? Like what about
Hmm. Yeah,
some of these? Like
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to hitting up, but I want to give it its own time and experience it, not because I have to read it or whatever, just because
Hmm.
like I want to enjoy it. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a
and that
lot of
takes
lot of
time. Yeah.
lot of good stuff out there. Yeah, I highly recommend that series, but I know it's like a huge time investment for people. So that's another thing. In the if you're just reading like single issues, like I bought a few. Short horror novels that I want to read real quick before diving back into to the fantasy and maybe doing some other stuff. But
Oh,
yeah,
and
it's.
oh,
Mhm.
and speaking of short horror novellas or novels, Scott Dyson, who we've had on the show, shout out to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's always good to check out. But yeah, yeah, I think yep, I think we've kind of wrapped up everything here.
Yeah, oh yeah. Let me put it back to the wide one here.
The
And
wide one. Me
well,
no.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
uh,
yeah. Well, I just want to say, keep an eye on us. We are fast growing here. Like we had really good luck with this, and some other ones. But like we are looking forward. Um, follow. I think I will say this. I don't mind covering the common current stream thing. But I'm not saying nothing bad about Xmen '97. I'm just saying, like, I like I like our path and how we take it, right? So I'd like a good palate cleanser for next week to get out of like the comic book. There's nothing wrong with it. I just mean like you can only watch something for so much, and then it gets real boring real quick. But hopefully, you out there who are still with us as we wrap up the show here, if you could please comment, like, subscribe, join us on the first last of the Nerdom. Our website is fast approaching. I have plans to deploy that here, hopefully in April. Um, maybe sooner than later. We'll see. It won't be an April Fool's joke if it hits on the first, though. I'll say that. But
Right.
if you could please join us there, and we are trying to build a community here. Likewise, hit up Thomas on Twitter. That is fast approaching like where folks are skating to the puck if you're a nerd, especially when it comes to your opinion and what you want to see or hear. But
Hmm.
go find Tom on First Last Nerdom online out there. And then I think we're rolling up, like you said, to the caboose here.
Yep.
I'm going to turn.
Yeah, if you like if you watched us this far, you might like us, so you might want to like and subscribe, and then also just to show that you made it this far. In the comments, let us know what your opinion on the X-Men are, and let us know who your favorite character is. I always kind of bounce back and forth between my characters. I guess I've kind of settled on Kitty Pryde, but also
As your
I had
favorite?
but I had a lot of love for Nightcrawler,
Hmm.
and everybody's favorite is Wolverine. So yeah, he's always out there. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd just say probably Wolverine, Nightcrawler. I agree. Such a compelling character,
Hmm.
and got such a great treatment in the
Yeah, and I
movies.
think the reason why I was so fascinated by Kitty Pryde was that she's the same age as me
Mm.
when she was introduced and when I was reading it. So it was
Mhm.
kind of fascinating to say, oh wow, here's a character my age, and it kind of rebels against the notion of you have to have some character that's like you to relate to them. I related to her character even though she was a female character and Jewish and from Chicago. So the fact that you could relate to any type of character as long as you have an emotional connection to that character and they
Absolutely.
kind of speak to the things that you were feeling at the time. So yeah, it obviously if you see a character that's like you, there's a connection there too. But you can connect to other characters as well. Is what I'm saying.
Outstanding, outstanding. Yeah. Well, I've been Mike,
And I'm Tom.
and well, I'll do a pathetic version of it, but like to me, my X Men.
Da-na-na, na-na, da-na-na, na-na.
Peace.